welcome back to another episode of That's When I Knew the Podcast, where real people have real conversations about the journey towards building a meaningful career in tech sales. I'm your host, Robert Creighton, and today I have a very, very special guest. But before I introduce her to the show, just a couple housekeeping items. Please follow, subscribe to the podcast wherever you are listening or watching. If you are watching this on YouTube, it means a great deal, and I would greatly appreciate it. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome my special guest today. Let's see here. My guest today specializes in helping female founders, women business owners, and sales leaders revitalize and rehumanize their people and cultures. My guest is also an advocate and expert in authentic selling principles. Authentic selling principles, right? And is on a mission to change the way selling is perceived. She spent the last 25 years working with companies that include Johnson & Johnson, Thermo Fisher, Dell, Microsoft, and more. And she's currently working as a sales and workplace confidence coach to help sales professionals achieve their personal and professional goals. Without further ado, Meshell Baker, welcome to That's When I Knew the Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Robert Clayton III. Let's get this right? He has predecessors, people.
Robert Clayton III, and you know they say the third time's a charm. So
right, exactly.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure to be here. I've had the privilege of hearing you with other people that I know, like, and respect in the sales arena, and just really appreciate what you're doing and the information and the empowerment that you put out there through this podcast.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And really excited to have you on the show today because you speak to some things that don't often get spoke about in the sales industry. I think a lot of sales, like when it comes to like sales coaching and, influencers, they're talking about more often than not, like tactical advice, how to prospect better, how to do a better demo, how to ask better discovery questions. And at the end of the day, sales is a people job. It's a job where you're interacting with people, and having those interpersonal skills is so critical in my opinion. And I know that's like really what you speak about is like building that confidence and other interpersonal skills. So I'm just really excited to have you on the show to hear your story and to hear your advice and have a good time.
Oh, well, thank you so much. It's my pleasure. And again, it's what I love to do. And, everybody, well, not everybody, but many people find what they're built for, what they're made for, that lights them up. And this really, really does light me up. So
awesome. Well, let's start from the beginning. This podcast, for the new listeners, new viewers, this podcast is about linking the professional and the personal. And, before we get into all of the advice and wisdom that you're going to shed on for the listeners, I would love if you can just share a little bit about yourself. Can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself and where you grew up, how you grew up?
Well, yes. So I was born in Louisiana, raised in the Bay Area, Oakland, California. So that was like one of the first things I noticed when I listened to Robert, that he's in the stomping ground of where I went. He knows like all the streets I mentioned. He's very familiar with them. So I was raised in that area. It was urban, blue collar neighborhood, a lot of minorities. Went to Castlemont, was, majority minority high school. And my parents were good, hardworking people. So they went to jobs and did jobs that they didn't necessarily like to do, but they put food on the table, paid the mortgage, paid the bills, car notes, and things like that. And what I saw and what I experienced early on in life was the question of why did so many people do this drudgery? Like, it didn't seem like anybody was really happy. Like, they were doing a bunch of stuff that they needed to be doing, but nobody was really enjoying themselves unless they were drinking, right? So, right? And so it was just like this rare time when people were happy, but most of the time they were miserable. And so as I set out and after I spent my early, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, my early days getting in trouble and some incarcerations and things, I set on a quest to actually find more peace, right? Like, how can I actually live a life that has fulfillment? So, and fulfillment was not the first thing I thought about. I first thought about seeking happiness. And then in the quest for that, you meet more people when you're on your quest, it's like it's like a walkabout. As you're going through, you're meeting people along the way, and there's these wise sages, and they impart information at it feels like just the right time, and it, changes and shifts your perspective. So, I've had a very interesting life. I've had a friend who told me I've lived many lives in one lifetime, right? Went to parochial school, went to public school, raised in alcoholism, went to college at 25, right? Relocated and lived in New York, bought a house, came to Texas, have been the live-in aide for my sister, like started a business. So I've had like many, many lives, it feels like.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, I'm sure through those many of lives that you've lived, you've gained so much wisdom, and I think that it bleeds into the content that you put out there. And yeah, you touched on something that's really interesting to me as far as, how you were, your upbringing, and the fact that your parents, they were blue collar workers. They were, work was more of a duty. It's like, hey, I got to put food on the table and feed the kids. So I'm going to do this job, whether I like it or not. I'm curious to hear from you. I mean, although you're in like the white collar space now, you're in corporate America, you're helping companies achieve their sales goals. And how would you say, what you saw growing up, what impact has that had on you? Do you think there's anything about that upbringing and seeing your parents that's bled into how you approach the white collar in corporate America?
Great question, and absolutely yes. I don't know if because initially I ended up in white collar because I was incarcerated at 20 years old. That I went out, and my quest was to make my parents proud because I was always smart. I was always highly, spoken well of in school. So I went, and after, getting distracted and deterred a little bit, I got back on course. So then it was like, do the right thing, get the job, buy the house, get the promotions, get the college degree, because I figured this would make me feel good about me. I was actually in a quest to do what I thought was what I saw everyone else doing, and then I'd be happy, right? Then I'd be okay. Then the brand of having that incarceration, that A on my chest, would be removed. My parents would be happy. Everybody would be happy, myself included. So that's where the quest began. And what I found at a certain point was that I had acquired all of these things. I had everything I thought I wanted, and I was absolutely still miserable, which was baffling. What was baffling, because it was all external. It was all these external things, and that's where the shifting to the happiness. So when you talked about empowering sales teams to unleash that unstoppable confidence and workplace competence, it's all about helping people to be successful so that they have energy left at the end of the day to love the people they're working for. They didn't come to work because of you. They came to work for the people that they love, for the lifestyle that they want to create by these jobs. And sales is one of those jobs that there's no cap on it in most companies. Yeah. So you can really do well and live an incredible life. However, many people are so stressed in how they're taught to sell that they are just wrung out by the time they get home. They don't want to talk to people, they're snapping, right? Nobody understands the emotional, spiritual, mental drain that it is to be a seller and a business owner, because a business owner is a seller. Nobody really talks about that psychological wearing, because you're only as good, you're constantly got to sell. When you're in business, you got to keep that pipeline full. Otherwise, you go out of business. If you have employees, you got to pay employees, right?
No, definitely.
This is what starts to happen internally, and then it will manifest externally in how they treat other people around them. And the people that are closest to you always get the brunt. They always get the brunt.
No, that is so true. That is so true. And I'm not going to lie. I've been guilty of that, being in sales and being in points in my career where it was it's like, hey, career, I gotta perform. I got to close deals. I got to be prospecting at night when I should be, spending quality time with my loved ones. And, they do, bear the brunt of that work. And, It's something I want to touch on with you, later on in the show. But one thing that you said that was really interesting to me, and like we actually have in common, is so my dad is a plumber. He actually today works for the city of Oakland, and when I was younger, I would go on jobs with him, to do plumbing jobs. So I'm under houses, carrying tool bags, carrying toilets, all type of stuff, and that's when I knew I didn't want to. No.
I'm tired of this, Grandpa.
That's too damn bad! You keep digging!
Well, excuse me.
But but it was so funny is that like how everything comes full circle. Today I'm a homeowner, and one of my I guess you can call them hobbies is working on my own house. So although I don't do like the blue collar handiwork as my profession, it is something that I enjoy, and I have so much respect for people who do blue collar work, because it is tough work, and but it's real. Like, and sometimes in sales, it's not really. It's like you're in the metaverse. Like everything is virtual. Like you sign a deal, and like something's happening. You sold the product, and somebody's using it, but something about literally building a home or building something and you can touch it is something about that I just really enjoy. And you also touch on something too. It's like that I want to kind of shed light on is in our families in the urban and like in these urban areas it's certainly the case that like although our parents are like going through doing these blue collar industries, they still recognize that, hey, I want better for my kids. And like, and to them, they see the white collar work. They're like, hey, go get an education, go get an office job. And they see that, and they know that that's the path forward. So I think that's really interesting that you shared. That's the reason you wanted to make your family proud, and you knew that this industry would make them proud. But, yeah, I would love to know, like, how did you even get into sales? Was it like what? Why sales?
Sales was not. I majored, so I went to Howard University.
Okay.
And I can remember I left Oakland, so I went to Chabot, right?
Okay.
So I went to a junior college, and then I was I was applying to UC Berkeley, right? Because I was a California resident, grades, transfer.
Okay.
And I actually remember going to the library because I was always been an avid reader, and I heard a speech given by Les Brown. Still one of my lifetime dreams to meet him. Les Brown talked about why African Americans should go to historically black colleges versus the mainstream, and changed my whole. I literally went and looked. I had never heard of an HBCU. Right. And I went and looked. And so I did my research, and I knew as an adult, because I was 25. So I knew as an adult that I would need to find one where I could work because I'm taking care of myself. So I looked and I had decided to major in finance. I had picked my major because that way I'd always have a job. I didn't pick something I loved. I was thinking about work. And so I looked for ones in a major city, and I whittled it down at Howard University and I applied. And I got accepted. So I didn't even go to Berkeley. I went to Howard. Best decision I absolutely made in my life, because there's nothing like sitting in that auditorium on that first day where there was or walking on that campus. And it was the first time in my life where I experienced a sense of pride in who I was. Mm-hmm. Right. There's, it was a first, where I came, there was nothing but a bunch of people that looked like me. I was the majority for the first time in my life. In a good way.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Right? You know what I'm saying? We're not at a party. We're not at a club. We're not, right? We're actually, these are people here for higher education.
What did that do for you? Like being in like having that sense of pride and, seeing all these people that look like you, but that were striving to, get a higher education, to do something really meaningful with their lives. What did that do for you? Like, how do you think that impacted you?
It added incredible confidence to me.
Okay.
So that was one of my first, one of my initial forays into experiencing what it was to have a sense of confidence. And then the instructors, right, in the School of Business at that time, really prepared us for corporate. They gave us scenarios of what it was going to be like, because this is, pre, DEI being popular, DEIB and George Floyd and all of that. So this is pre that. So this is when it's still, right, where it was not an easy thing to get a position in corporate, even after you got the education. So they prepared us to really be consistent, like regardless of what anyone says. Like if you get a no, don't care. That no is not going to stop you. Clearly define what you're going to do, how you're going to do, and keep going, right? Because if you fall apart after the first no, then you don't really want it anyway. Right? So, well, I mean, we got that kind of, instruction at the college. So it was absolutely incredible. It was a wonderful experience that, when I came out, it allowed me to maneuver very different in corporate than I think I would have if I'd went to a mainstream school and I hadn't had those conversations that prepared me for the inequity that I was getting ready to experience.
Yeah. Wow. So yeah, I mean that's deep. So going to an HBCU gave you that confidence of knowing just like, hey, I'm surrounded by a bunch of talented people. You're seeing people doing things that look like you, and but it's like the total opposite in the tech industry.
I was in pharmaceuticals, and it was like that. When I was in pharmaceuticals, there was nobody, right? It was
I imagine.
It was crickets.
I imagine that.
Yeah. So, getting prepared for the, once people get comfortable, here comes the barrage of questions that they want to, so again, this is like, so when I talk about confidence, it's about being confident that when someone asks me that question, it is because I'm given the opportunity to answer it in a way so that that person now feels comfortable with someone who looks like me. So the next person that they bump into, it'll be okay, right? Like creating that, like understanding that somebody's got to be the first, right? So that all that time being offended, that's not confidence. If you're offended, offense is
and you're
taken,
speaking
it's not given.
And you're speaking about like people, like women and people of color who are like get offended.
Period. Yes. Yeah. This is understanding, like you're dealing with someone who doesn't know, right? And personalizing it, and it could be that it's an intentional personalizing, but you deciding to personalize someone else's ignorance takes away from your credibility, your confidence, your influence, your leadership. Like, don't sink to their level. Like emotionally, you sink, and then you start matching them, and you don't go anywhere. Like, hold the ground that you are amazing. You belong where you're sitting. You, like, no one and nothing gets to stop you from what you've decided to, who you've decided to become in your career, right? And this is just a bump in the road.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, women, people of color, usually, often. And, really everyone, it's not just women and people of color, but a lot of people, they suffer from imposter syndrome. What would you say to those people who are just feeling like, I don't know, like is this really for me? Like,
well, then
I don't know.
Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead and finish the question. Is this really for me? Were you going to add to that?
Yeah, that's it. Like, is this really for me? Yeah. Well, no, is this for me? Like, I don't know.
And that's a great question. So that clarity. So one of the first things that I work when I'm working with individuals and teams of people, the first thing we do is clarify why do you want to be a seller, right? What does that mean for you overall? So that way you can lock that in, and then we go through the behavioral conditioning so that you become it. Right? You're not just saying it or thinking it or wishing it. You actually become it, so you can't not be it. So when someone walks up to you and decides they want to speak to you other than who you've decided to be, well, you're confused in a good way, right? I'm not adversarial to anyone. Like, I've decided I'm amazing. Like, I think one of my colleagues posted something they heard me say on a recent LinkedIn Live. Your bad day does not dictate my awesome. I've decided to be awesome. If you're having a bad day, you do not get to deter me from that. And actually, what my self realizes is that you must be having a bad day, because in the world we live in, if you can be anything, be kind, be compassionate, be thoughtful. So when you're choosing to be otherwise, your vessel has so much anger and frustration and disappointment and all the negativity in you, you can't do anything but be what you're being. You need my kindness. So I get excited that I get to give at that moment where other people want to match it, nasty, negative for negative. I don't. I actually amp up my positivity in those moments. And this is what I teach people when I teach people about confidence. Like, it's a very different manner. I call it contagious, because I believe your confidence should be a gift to other people. It's not just about you being so confident you get all this stuff. It's about you being so confident that you have an overflow and you're giving to other people. So when you are leaving other people better off for having experienced your level of confidence.
I had to let there be like a little space when you said that, because that was such a gem. I mean, I never really thought about it like that. Confident, oftentimes we do think of confidence as like self-absorbed and like, it's about me. But it really, I love what you said. Like true confidence is you're giving confidence to other people around you. That is deep there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
And
want
I'll
to
just add this little caveat that true confidence understands that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. And that, and I'm not a religious snob. God, universe, divine, Buddha, Allah, the source, whatever you want to call it. There's something greater than us. So we have the ability to be infinite, unending, and unlimited when we tap into the abundance that we all have the capability. So when you're truly confident, I don't need to take from you. I don't need to be hurtful to you. And I understand that whatever energy I emit, it's just a reflection of who I am. Right? So I only emit what I would want, because it has to come through me. Like for me to be short and, I don't even know the words because it's so rare that I actually do it. But for me to be nasty and snippy and backbiting to someone or gossip about someone, it has to formulate in my thoughts first before it becomes my words. And this vessel, I work day in, day out to keep the vessel pure. So if somebody says something nasty about someone in my presence, I generally go, well, did you ask them a question? Well, maybe they're having a bad day. You've had a bad, so my mind goes to the fact that maybe that person is struggling. How can you be helpful instead of tearing them down even more?
Yeah. Okay. I want to touch on two things. The first one you said is conditioning. So I'm imagining you're saying conditioning, like going back as it relates to building confidence, conditioning. And is that would you say that's like practice? So whatever it is you're doing, practice, if you have that imposter syndrome and you feel like you're not meant to do something, all that is, hey, you need to first believe you can do it. And then just say, I'm going to do it. Practice, reputation. Is that would you say that is the case?
Exactly. Repetition is the mother of skill and success, right? So practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes prepared. Practice has you prepared. So whatever external circumstances, situation, or person arises in your sphere of being, you are prepared for the unplanned, the unanticipated, right? The inconvenience, the uncomfortable, right? The uncertainty, and that you will stay in a state of confidence that everything is working. I don't need to know everything. I just understand that I am well equipped in this moment and well prepared because I have practiced. Like I always say, athleticism is a great example and alignment to sales and business success. That the reason people make the 3-point shot at the buzzer is because they went and practiced the shot 10,000 times. Not because they magically got thrown the ball, right? So this is so amazing that people want to, when people come up to you and they hear what I do for a living, and I'm in an Uber or somewhere, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, can I ask you a question? And I giggle because I know the question is, how do I get more clients? And stuff. 99.9% of the time, that's what someone's going to ask me. How do I get more clients? And getting clients is a symptom, right? It's not the root cause. my first question is, oh, that's a great, yeah, like, I want to know about your business or whatever. And then it's like, so why do you deserve more clients? Right? And what does it benefit the client? Why does the client, so when you get the client, what is so amazing about what you do that they should say yes to you? Right? So I asked her, like, and you'll be amazed at how many people cannot answer these questions. Some basic
What's the right
questions.
answer?
There is
Or like,
none.
oh, okay.
Okay. So for example, because like I say, why, one of the first questions I ask is, you know, why do you want more clients, or why do you believe you deserve more clients? Oh, because the service I have to offer is amazing. I'm really excited about helping people so your answer is about the client.
Okay. That's a good answer.
Right. So what most people's answer is because they want to make more money.
Oh yeah, that's
it's about
bad
you.
Right. Right.
So that's not an answer that's in favor, because when you're focused on the experience of the client, well, that's how you create more clients that really love working with you and tell other people about you and refer and all of that. But when you're focused on getting more sales, well, generally you're not that great at the process that the clients go through, or the follow-up with the clients as well. Because once you sold, you're done.
Right. I wanna get into some more advice that you have for like entrepreneurs and you know, sales professionals, because obviously those two things are linked. But I, you know, and the advice that I want to hear from you is like this type of advice. It's like this almost spiritual advice, not the X's and O's on like, okay, you need to get a marketing person. Like, no, we all know like you can find plenty of that, but I want to hear more about this spiritual side. But I also want to like, can you touch on your background in, because I know that you know, you mentioned to me off the line that you were a minister at one point, and so yeah, can you talk about a little bit about how your faith has kind of impacted how you approach your career coaching and in this side of your business?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I was a leader in a women's ministry, right?
Okay.
So I've not acquired a ministerial certification, but I've done a lot of leadership work in women's ministries. Yeah, so what I found was that, and this is attributed to confidence, that when I went into sales, I had majored in finance, and I did it well, but I was bored senseless. And we had a team building activity for the accounting department that I was a part of, and they outsourced this woman to come in and do team building. I was so enamored with her that when the team went to lunch, I actually stayed behind and hung out with her, right? Which is not something you do. You're supposed to go with the team, but that's how bored the team.
You went with your new team. You was like, "This is my team. This is my new team."
Can't with y'all no more, right?
Yeah.
And I stayed behind, and we ended up talking, and I was helping her put the packets out for that, like after lunch. And so she asked me, "Oh, so you're on vacation next week?" I never forget this. And I was like, "No, what vacation?" She was like, "Well, I'm working with the marketing department next week. So I figure you must be on vacation or taking time off. That's why you're with the accounting department this week." And I was like, "No, I'm in the accounting department." That woman looked horrified. She was like, oh, honey, no. She was like, "Here's my card. Please call me." And she did a, Briggs-Meyer assessment and helped me to understand I belonged in sales. And that's how I ended up in sales, right? Was someone who, and this is why I do the work. This is why I'm so willing to have conversations with people, even when they don't pay me. Why I'm so willing to give of my time, because that woman volunteered to help me because she saw how far off the path I was. Right. And it changed my life because the assessment said I would be a seller. It would be a manager or a lawyer. Well, I wasn't going back to school. You can't start in a job as a manager, right? I could have became a manager in the accounting department, but I already knew I didn't like that, right? So I was like seller. So I, did my research, and that's how I ended up in sales. And go back. So I'm gonna have you refresh me on the question, but I wanted
the question was because you mentioned that you were a leader in a ministry and a women's ministry, and
And so,
I want to know the impact that, your like faith and spirituality has had in your career coaching and, your business that you run today.
and that's why I was tying that together. Thank you. So I took a leap. I left not only my job. I took I relocated because I had left Howard in DC, went back to Oakland, California, and where I really wanted to go was New York. And so I had cousins who had a brownstone in Harlem. I called them. They said, "Bet we got a room. You want to come? We can let you crash for a little bit till you get on your feet." And I figured if I was going to leap. Right? Leap off the cliff. Because if you can sell in New York, right? You know what I'm saying? You can sell anywhere. And so it was faith, right? I trusted that none of this was an accident. I have done so many things like the time is now. And I haven't always left. There's been times where, I got, so many things in my life where I got a little scared for a while there. But the faith and the understanding that when I call it so the term I use now is nervous-sighted. When I'm in that space where I know clearly that everything in me, I'm dreaming it, I'm watching movies, and it's like something keeps popping up. I'm reading magazines, and that thing that I want more, it just keeps popping up, right? But at the same time, it makes me nervous, a little bit scared. I call it nervous-sighted because I'm excited about the possibility, but I'm nervous that I don't, because it's so much of the unknown involved.
Right.
That
nervous-sighted.
So that's where the faith is understanding that is actually me being drawn into becoming more. That's not about the getting, it's about the becoming. It's about building a trust muscle so that I can say yes to bigger and bigger, because the things that create the most amazing life are always way outside the comfort zone. And outside the comfort zone is nothing but fear. And fear is not real. We have learned this time and time again. Fear is not real. It's either feel everything and forget everything and run, right? Or I call it face everything and rise. So
face
it's not
everything
real.
And rise.
It's not, everything we want is on the other side of fear. There's no way to it but through it, because if you try to go around it, you'll get the lesson again. Life is the best teacher ever. You're gonna keep getting that lesson until you learn it. Life says, I'm gonna learn you.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
Why is clarity a gift? Why is clarity a gift?
Because when you're clear, you're more able to make decisions. We don't have a lack of information right now, right? Most people are in an environment where they have so many people telling them what they ought to need to should do, that they're overwhelmed and confused and scared to make the wrong decision. When you're clear on what you want, when you're clear and you have that burning desire inside of you for your why, you will take the leap. And when you're clear that it's about you becoming someone amazing, not about what other people think about you, you will take the leap and you'll go. But most people can't make a decision because they're overwhelmed, right? And I think overwhelm is just the switch off, because abundance and overwhelm are the same thing. The difference is clarity, right? When you are overwhelmed, you think, oh, it's too much. I can't handle it. Like, I'm frustrated. I don't know what to do. When you are abundant, it's an overflow, and you're clear on what's yours and what's not yours. So you make a decision. You keep going. Oh, yeah, you want me to do what? Okay, and you think that's going to benefit me? So why do you think that's going to benefit me? Oh, actually, that's not part of who I decided to be or my vision of what I'm creating, but I appreciate the opportunity. And at this time, I'll tell you no. So clarity allows you to say yes and no, very clear for what's serving you and what you're creating.
Wow. No, I love that. Okay. So far we have confidence, we have clarity, we have like kindness. What are some other intangible interpersonal skills, attitudes, things of this nature that sales professionals and entrepreneurs should be striving to either, implement, whatever. Like, what are some other interpersonal skills that are key for success?
One of my favorites. It's I call it it's I heard it years ago, and I can't remember exactly where I heard it, so I don't want to cite it. But it's called the platinum rule. And
Okay.
so many people have been taught this golden rule where you treat people the way you want to be treated.
Yeah.
Everybody's familiar with that. I think it's
Right.
ridiculous and it's lazy. Because if I treat everybody the way I want to be treated, I'm treating everybody one way, my way. Does that make sense? Does anybody else out there look like me? No. Does anybody else think like me, feel like me, have desires and dreams like me? No. The platinum rule states I treat other people the way they want to be treated. Now I got to go to work because now I got to get to know you. Now I got to ask you questions, right?
Right.
So it actually, and what it does is it allows me to become influential, right? Because once you master it, initially it's hard because you're not used to it. You're used to just saying, well, I wouldn't do that. Well, why would you do it? Like you're used to just being judgmental and critical of other people. This way it allows you to be curious about people because you're learning them, right? You're understanding them like, oh my God, I would have never did that. That's amazing. And what it does is it expands your sphere of influence. Your mind doesn't capture what you criticize and judge, right? What you look at through a very observational and curious manner, it synthesizes it into who you are. And that's how you all of a sudden have all these ideas. People who are incredible solutions people invite problems. And I was doing a presentation to a bunch of entrepreneurs recently and talking about getting more clients. And I'm like, you have a product or a service that's a solution. This is for sellers too. You offer a product or a solution that's a product or service that's a solution to your buyers. So guess what you have basically said? I want to deal with problems all day long. So learning to master how you take on problems is a gift. And one of the quickest ways to do that is starting to learn how to influence more people in your conversations, how you can inspire people to find their own solutions. Because when you do it for all day long for people around you, it's effortless to do it for your clients as well. It's become seamless.
Yeah. No, I love that curiosity. It also makes me think of like the love languages. People have different love languages, right? Like, there's the way you want to be loved, right? But then there's also the way people want to be loved. So it's like one of those things where the platinum rule would say, hey, it's not about you. You might like quality time. This person might like words of affirmation. And so it's like pushing a boulder uphill. Even if the intentions are right, everyone's not going to recognize your intentions. So it's better to what are some tangible, what are some ways in which we can learn our customers, for example? Like, let's make it about business. Like, yeah, if I'm a seller, how can I learn? I'm on a new sales call with this new account. How can I learn my prospect and present a solution to them that's going to be best for them and not for me?
Oh, great question. Well, first, pre-call planning. So this many companies teach this, but also some companies don't. This is on you as the seller to take the time to get curious about the person or people you're about to present to. I go on the LinkedIn, I look at their profiles. So if I have a group of people, I will look at each one of their profiles, and you don't even have to send me. I can just look at the Zoom link, right? I know the company, so I go search out but I have Sales Navigator. I've invested in my business and my business of people. So I will go look at look at the company, pull up all the people who are going to be on, and look at their profiles. I have a program that gives me the disc. So I know if they're a driver or motivator or and all of that. I look at the company, I read about when they started. So I do research, and I do it. The goal is that I do it at least a day before. I try to do it between 24 and 48 hours before. So my mind has the time to, I like the term marinate. Right? My mind has the time.
Let it marinate.
So let it marinate. So when I get on the call, I'm well prepared, and I understand that now I just need to be present. Like my mind, I have universe, got like infinite on my side, infinite, unending, unlimited. He knows, and the background is just he, could be she, they. knows all of them, knows what they need, knows who I am, and I know it's not an accident. So it's that becoming prepared and knowing my product and being willing to have a conversation about what it looks like for them. What is your challenge? What are you currently experiencing? And how can I support you in creating the solution, your ideal solution? Not just patchwork. What I want you to walk away when you work with me, I believe that anybody works with me, I'm here for the big, hairy, audacious. I'm here for the thing that you don't like. It's so awesome. Like, if only I want to help people create the thing that excites the hell out of them. That's what I was created for.
Wow.
I call it the I'm possible, right? Which is if you spell impossible with an apostrophe and a capital P, it becomes I'm possible.
Wow. Okay.
So doing the work of your background work on the people
that's key.
that you are about to, and understanding your product and understanding the process. Like, some people have a longer selling cycle, maybe you're a back order, like, be willing to be honest about everything. If they ask a question you don't know, I tell my clients, like, if I'm on a call and somebody asks me a question I don't know, I'm like, oh, you trying to learn me? You making me earn this money today, right? Right. I will actually say that to somebody. I've said it many, many times. Honestly, I don't know. And I'll get back to you. When would you like to have that back? But you can't make it up. The minute you start trying to make up stuff, your whole persona changes, and they can hear it in your vocal. Like, you can't hide deception. So, and that's what people try to do. They try to wing it and all of those things. So when you prepare yourself and recognize, you focus on what you are proposing, which is value, not the close. Don't be focused on whether they buy or not. Be focused on whether they experience value. That's all you want to do on that call. You will have so much more success in sales.
Okay.
But everybody's teaching them how to overcome objections. I got to close them. I got a timeline. I don't even
How do you provide value? How does a seller provide, or an entrepreneur provide value?
The value is your solution.
So you have to understand. Okay.
You have to understand what their problem is. And that's not just like, as soon as they tell you answer one question, start pitching them. That's asking more questions. So when, have you tried to work this out before? Did you work with someone? Oh, you did. So tell me about that experience. What did you like about it? What didn't you like about it? Right.
Yes.
Have you researched other companies? Right. You did. So in the ranking order of the companies you research, where do I fit? Like, don't be scared to ask the questions that position you to be able to share with them why you believe you're a good fit. And if you don't believe you're a good fit, do not take the business, because it's going to be a nightmare the whole time. You're going to be trying to fit. If you don't believe you're a good fit, you'll be trying to jam that square peg in that round hole the whole relationship.
Wow. So I guess it's also for those individual contributors out there. I guess you would say it's important to work for a company you believe in.
Yes. So yes, that was huge for me in my career. And why I did well in corporate sales was that I looked at the values of the companies. I looked at their products. I researched their current events to see if they had any off-color things that had happened. And I went to the interview understanding that I loved my current job. It wasn't about money for me. It was about the opportunity to challenge myself and have more fun do something different, right? So it was a challenge and the opportunity to partner with another company that was doing something innovative or creative. That's why I always took the next opportunity. And so I interviewed them like, why do you get me? Right? I got a job. I'm happy. And even if I didn't have one, I wouldn't. I tell you, that desperation, you cannot get an apple tree from an orange seed. Whatever you try to convince somebody in the state of energy, if you're desperate, you cannot create amazing from desperate. If you finagle somebody into buying because you got a bill to pay or you got mortgage to pay, but you don't really believe in the sale and it was all about you getting, it's going to be a challenge the whole entire time. And you probably won't have a raving client. And what you want or you want raving clients?
Okay. I got another question for you. Because I
Yes.
feel like oftentimes sellers, the pressure comes from internally, especially
God,
with the
yes.
way the comp plans are structured. Usually half your pay is contingent on signing up companies. And so how do you, what's the solution there? Is the solution well, I guess for one, what advice would you give to a seller who is in these type of environments where it's high pressure? And I know we're coming up on time, but what advice would you give to sellers who are in these high pressure environments on how to deal with that pressure, and then so that they're not transferring that pressure into their sales calls? And then conversely, what advice would you give to sales organizations, VPs and CROs who, like, do you think there's anything that needs to change?
Yes. So for the sellers, it's to take time to get clear on why you've decided to sell, for this company. And once you get clear on that, if you're deciding that this is, a good fit and this is what you want to do, then decide that I'm going to be amazing at it no matter what. Understand that to be a top seller, you must invest in yourself. The training they gave you is never enough for you to be a top performer. Like, this is a podcast you're listening to, have a myriad. Anytime you have downtime, you want to fill your mind and your thoughts with the belief that you can do it. And the only way you'll be able to do that is that you got to hear just a multitude of people. I can't even give you a number because everybody's number is going to be different for their unconscious mind to click in and be supportive. There's a voice in your head that you are hearing right now as you're listening to me. It's either feeding you belief or it's feeding you doubt. And until you get it to switch to belief, it's always going to be a struggle. You're always going to hesitate, second guess, think, have imposter syndrome, think it's unfair, think somebody's talking about you, that, run what went wrong in your head. And top performers don't doubt that they can sell, right? It's just who I am. Who wouldn't want to buy from me? And that's the repetition. You talked about the practice. It's the repetition. So what are you reading? Are you taking a course? Do you need to hire a coach? Are you part of a mastermind? That extra time and input, you cannot get an outcome without the input. So wanting the mindset of a high performing or top performer demands input. So as a seller, once you decide that you're going to work with this company, this is what you want to do, then you go all in. Don't hold back. A barrage of input that will help you build and understand what it takes. Find a mentor at the job. Go talk to top performers at your company, other companies. Whatever it takes, your mind needs to switch, and it's only going to switch with the input from that you give it. And for CROs and sales leaders, again, creating spaces for vulnerability, creating spaces so that they can have these conversations, so that people can talk about what's working and what's not working in a way that they don't fear job loss, that they don't fear repercussions. We are in a time, and time is changing faster and faster and faster, right? I look at our parents, and things went so slow for them, and it goes fast now. So creating safe space, right, for people to thrive, and understanding that everybody has a life outside of work, right, and being willing to support them in understanding why did they come to sell for you and with you, and maybe you might need to do a little extra to help them to do that, right? But sales is a contact sport, right? And you got to make contact with these people on a human level if you want them to perform. Because right now we've got the Great Resignation. We've got people who have show up with a resume of a year and have had 6 and 8 jobs. You want to keep people, they're looking for people who actually care, right? People don't care what you know until they know you care. Period.
Period. Now, do you have about 5 more minutes?
Oh God, yes.
All right. So there's a big day approaching, and I'm sure it's going to be huge for you based off of the business that you're in and helping women, women sales professionals, entrepreneurs get the most out of their careers. So question for you. What advice would you give to women in particular that are interested or currently in a career in sales, or, that are entrepreneurs today?
Oh, good. Great advice. And I love this question because I will just share a little bit about my background. I was in sales and I did exceptionally well in sales because my focus was my clients. I had so much fun selling. I was that person that you find a job you love, you'll never work a day in your life. And I used to just think it was such a treat to walk into those offices and those hospitals and those laboratories and, the ERs. Or in the ORs, like I just thought it was a treat to get to talk to all these unique different people. Now, not everybody does that. So if you're struggling and, or you want to get into sales and you don't know how, first and foremost, I would say find a mentor. If you can't find a mentor, look for podcasts like this, right? There's a list. If you're a woman, there's lists of women podcasts, and listen to the podcast. If there's someone you hear that really sparks something in you, find a way, send them a DM, right? Look and see if there's an email. You must become relentless in your pursuit to get inputs so that you can actually believe in your capability. It's not an accident that you're believing that you can be successful in sales. It's a great, great career. And it can, you can have an amazing life at a career in sales. And so look for someone to support you. And again, I'm a big fan of the podcasts and the books. We have a book that's coming out, and it's Heels to Deals. I'm very proud to be one of the authors, 20 women who talk about women, doing exceptionally well in B2B sales. So if you're looking for a career as a woman in B2B sales, I'd say grab the book and start reading some of those chapters, and then link up, start following people, listen to if they have podcasts. Again, it's up to you to create the source of inputs so that you can cultivate the output. And remember, the mind is a muscle. So your unconscious mind is in control. The voice in your head, if it's a chick or a dude, depending on who you are listening, it does 90% of the work. So you are going to need almost 9 times the input to get the output. That's what most people, and that's why everybody does it. That's what I said. If it was easy, everyone would do it. And that's the challenge. Most people don't want to do the input work, but they want the output.
Mic drop. All right, cool. Yeah, and the link to the book, link to you will be in the comments or in the show notes. So definitely check that out. Follow, connect with Meshell, because and you also post a lot of inspirational content on LinkedIn. So I definitely recommend following Meshell, whether you're a woman or not. There's a lot of value there. And so with that said, it's the end of the show, but we got to save the fun part for the last. The whole show has been fun, but this is the part of the show where, it's going to be a good time. Okay. So here's how it goes. We have a game, and it's called the Confidence Boost the Game.
Oh,
the way this is going to work, because you do on a daily basis, you have this series called Ignite Confidence, where you have these cards and you're giving the confidence tip of the day. So the way this game is going to work is I'm going to give you 5 scenarios, and I just need something short and sweet on what you would say to this person to give them some confidence. Are you ready?
Yep.
All right. Okay. The first scenario: salesperson just missed quota for the second consecutive month, and they're feeling down.
Okay. Scenario is time to write a vision. So who have you decided to be as a seller? Let's get that clear. Let's get you locked in on a daily activity that supports your success, so that we can turn this around, because you only missed it because you kept missing it. If you saw meeting it, you would have met it. So we got to get your mind right.
Get your mind right, people. All right. Someone is thinking about breaking into tech sales, but they've never done the job before, so they're not sure if it's for them.
Tech Sales Podcast. So there's somewhere out there's a podcast that talks to people who are in tech sales, talks about what the job looks like, interviews people who started and didn't do, like, you're not the first person that never had a background in tech sales that broke into tech sales. So definitely, and looking to see if there's some meetups. Can you go to a virtual online meeting and talk to someone, meet with someone, and get on their calendar and have a conversation?
Boom. Basically, subscribe to the show, people.
Exactly.
And go to some meetups and join some Slack groups. All right. A seller is doing extremely well in their job, but they're struggling to find balance outside of work.
Again, it goes to the clarity. So struggling to find balance means that you don't think you have enough time to do the things that are most important to you. So we got to look and do some time tracking to see what's absorbing the most of your time, and see where we can start to trade off and balance out your time by plugging in some little things that, it's called stacking. Atomic Habits is a great book, but it's called stacking, so that you can see where you can add more things in your calendar that you really want to do and take some things off. But you got to track it. You got to see where your time is going first, because if you're not doing what you really want to do, it's because you believe that you don't have the time to.
Time management. They just got laid off. They just been laid off. What's next?
Oh, this is fun. I'm 12 for 12 on this, where I actually tell people to write the vision of your dream job.
Okay.
Right. So write out what your dream job is, and then think about the companies that would have that. And then that's where you start to go look for people to follow or connect with, because you may be amazed at who is already, on LinkedIn or in your, like, somewhere that you're already connected to, or maybe someone is connected to. Start moving in that direction of having conversations, and you'll be amazed at what starts to show up. But first, awesome. Write out what your dream job is, and remember, why you are the person for this dream job. Because some people will write a job and then there's a disconnect. There needs to be a connection.
Gotcha. I love that. Okay. We have an entrepreneur. They're very technical. They're very smart, super intelligent. They're about to embark on starting their new business, but they are afraid to speak with strangers. They get really nervous with speaking with strangers.
Okay. This is a good one. So, scared to speak with strangers. It goes back to, so what is it? Generally, people are scared to speak with strangers because they have an insecurity about who they are. They're feeling that imposter syndrome, or they think, I need to sell someone, right? Mm-hmm. So it's about thinking about beforehand. One, why do you want to go to the event where you need to talk to strangers, right? And two, preparing yourself to have conversations that are not specific to the fear, but instead about having conversations that are valuable, where you're just getting to know someone. So kind of like creating those scenarios and practicing in that, so you're prepared, and being willing to tell people, I'm a little nervous. Like, I'm not that great at talking, but I'm really excited to be here, and tell them. Like, so a lot of people, like when I was practicing, instead of doing an elevator pitch, really just engaging people, I would tell them, you know what, I'm moving from the elevator pitch and just really want to get to know people. So I might, if I say something that feels weird, let me know, because this is practice for me, and I'm happy and I'm excited to have a conversation with you. So being honest and vulnerable.
Wow, I love it. Thank you so much for participating in Igniting Confidence, the game. So, now I hope that
I literally saw somebody open a box, Igniting Confidence, the game. I'm like, oh, is he speaking into my future?
Yeah, no. Well, I have my editor of the show. She's going to add in all the effects. So I'm trying to give her some space to come in and, drop the effects in there. But Meshell, I really, really appreciate you joining me on That's When I Knew the podcast today, and sharing your story, sharing the wisdom. It's been super helpful. And so, I'm just so grateful to have you on the show today.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Cheers to what you do. Keep igniting the way for more people to get into tech sales. It's a great opportunity to be, and the industry just continues to expand. So the opportunity for income, for you to create a life that you love, and to be able to love on the people you're, working to love on, is absolutely at your fingertips. So subscribe and listen and grow.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Meshell. And how can people get in contact with you? What's the best way?
The best way is you can either email at hello@meshellbaker.com, which is my name, MESHELLBAKER. You can link with me on any social media channels, which is and it's Meshell R. Baker. My middle initial is how I was able to get them all. So LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, you will find me at Meshell R. Baker.
Awesome. All right. Well, until next time.
I remember when the vision wasn't as clear. I don't think they thought that I would make it, but motherfuck they thoughts, cause I'm here. Now we in for the taking, yeah. My God.